Democratic state lawmakers are starting to show signs of movement on the biggest issue holding up the now late New York State budget. Public safety and bail reform are those issues. Today, Capital Region Assembly member Kerry Warner making the case to reestablish judicial discretion for felonies and misdemeanors that are currently not bail eligible, but involve situations where a person has harmed another in some way with an unacceptable level of danger. This language introduced in a bill by Democrat Assemblyman Ken Zabrowski and would more closely align with Governor Hochul's proposals.
In my community, there's a lot of concern about crime. There's a lot of concern about public safety. So I'm advocating that we understand that we need to make changes to the bail laws, to the public safety, to our approach to public safety.
Of course, this comes all past 12 a.m. April 1st, that deadline, with some lawmakers telling us they don't expect the final vote until after Easter. There's been talk of an extender, which would help mitigate the financial impact on state workers and organizations. But tonight we ask, is there a better process to get the budget done on time?
In the 5 years that I've been here, this is the worst process that I've been a part of.
The budget deadline came and went, with lawmakers still needing to see 9 budget bills. Of course, the budget deadline has been passed by weeks, sometimes months over the years.
The truth of the matter is they've had since January to been working on this budget to put something together. Negotiations should have started a month ago. And we should have had a deal ready to go on the table by the beginning of this week.
Well, I think we're going to make sure that the state workers are not impacted by this because that would be unfair. And you know, the legislators won't get paid until the budget gets done, which I think is actually the right thing.
Some Democrats we spoke to say missing the deadline means they're making sure the budget's a good one. But there are always sticking points. In many cases, it comes with the inclusion of policy by the governor.
I think that the Assembly and the Speaker have taken a position that they want to take the majority of policy out of the budget. And we've always argued, well, you've got one-party rule. There's no reason to put policy in the budget. But when you have warring factions within the Democratic Party, maybe you do need to put some policy in the budget. Maybe that's the only way that something like fixes to bail reform are going to get done.
In other states, it's a legislative budget. The governor is a proposer only. In New York, the legislature can only alter, subtract, or delete in their own proposals. Assemblyman Phil Steck says he believes the power of the purse should be in the hands of the representatives closest to the people.
And when you have legislative budgeting, what happens is the two houses get together, they have conference committees, they work out a budget, and it's done. And just is a more efficient process, and that's the process the federal government uses.
But even as we move farther past the deadline, lawmakers still want time to be thorough. State Senator Jim Tedisco says he's against any rush to push bills through.
We want the 3 days to read it, understand it, and represent ourselves on the floor with important questions about why they're doing it for our constituents. Be real representatives.
Right now, the Assembly is at the call of the Speaker. The Senate is due back on Monday.
Welcome back, everyone. Our Maggie DeRozier sat down with Lieutenant Matthew Malinowski yesterday to answer your questions and discuss this week's top stories.
Good morning. We're joined today by Lieutenant Malinowski with the Syracuse Police Department. Lieutenant Malinowski, thanks for being here.
Good morning. Happy to be here as always.
So officers were quick to respond to the Nashville shooting at Covenant Presbyterian School. Walk us through that response.
Unfortunately, another active shooter incident that occurred in one of our schools, which was horrible. I want to say that the cops at that agency that responded did an amazing job. They went right into action, went right into the school, found the shooter, and eliminated the threat. That's really important to know. That's how we're trained as law enforcement. You maybe have to go in by yourself, or you grab a team of 2 or 3 officers and you go right in if someone's actively shooting at people. One of the biggest things, remember, if you ever find yourself in that type of scenario, or if you're talking to your children, is that run, hide, fight. So if you hear gunshots going off, running away, finding a good hiding spot, securing your classroom, but getting out of the hallway so when the police come in, they're able to find the shooter and stop them from killing more people.
Definitely a very tough situation. And, you know, this week, schools across the state and in central New York were receiving reports of active shooter incidents of swatting. So, you know, how does this strain police resources, and what kind of stress does that add, thinking you're walking into this kind of situation?
Yeah, this goes in waves. It doesn't just happen always at schools. It's happened at people's homes. It started when people were playing video games and they would call SWAT team to the other person's house and then watch the SWAT team enter as someone's playing a game as a joke. What's really important, again, we got to talk to our kids about this. There's nothing jokingly about it. We're already heightened because we're seeing these shooting incidents happen across the country. And then we're deploying all of our resources to that scene because until we know that there's not an active shooter, we're getting reports of one, we're going to treat it that way. So you're really depleting a ton of resources and you're putting people at risk. And again, just causing mad chaos when these things go out.
Definitely. And now we've got 2 viewer questions. One viewer is asking about the license plate readers that the department is looking to implement. And they're asking, since many plates in the area are missing paint, does that then become a little bit less ineffective, as well as, should we be ticketing those drivers who you can't really read their license plates?
Yeah, that was a big issue several years back. We're still dealing with those lingering plates with the paint peeling off. You are supposed to get those plates replaced. I know that it was free to New York State through the DMV. Could have some unique challenges, but I think that the one unfortunate incident is we deal with a lot of crime in the city. So we would love to enforce all those laws with the plates, but we're kind of going with bigger things. But I think as these license plate readers are implemented, if we find that these peeling plates are becoming an issue, then we can step up enforcement and encourage people to replace their plates.
Alrighty, and then the second viewer wants to know a little bit more in regards to the extent of punishment for the person who threatened the tops in Manlius. They're wanting to get a better understanding of why just guns were taken away and he didn't remain in jail. Would you kind of walk us through that? Yeah,
so when you make a threat that you're going to shoot up a school or cause any sort of mass harm like that, the charge is called making a terroristic threat. It's a D felony here in New York. It's frustrating that the person was released from jail in a case especially where he threatened to cause harm. That's something where it's our criminal justice system, and we've talked where some of these reforms maybe have gone too far. So that's kind of a whole separate issue. But what really kicked in, which we like, is that those red flag laws. So when you do make that type of threat, we're able to go to a court, get a court order, and get the guns that you possess or any guns you might have access to. And that's really an important tool for us. But again, we would advocate for keeping violent people in jail, but it's out of our hands once we make an arrest.
All righty. And Lieutenant Malinowski, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you as always. Have a good week.